The world never anticipated this. At midnight, a clip surfaced, and in just a few shaking words, millions of souls shattered. A woman with sobs streaming down her face whispered into the lens, "I am Malcolm Jamal Warner's only spouse, and I am not battling for money. I am battling for my husband's honor." The internet froze. For weeks, people trusted Tracee Ellis Ross's startling claims. They trusted the DNA reports, the hidden wedding tale, the photos. They trusted a story that framed Malcolm's legacy in a way no one could picture. But in one devastating moment, everything reversed. This wasn't just some ordinary outsider. This was the woman who had remained quiet her entire life. No red carpets, no Twitter posts, no spotlight. And yet she carried the proof that silenced the chaos. The certified marriage license, medical files, the burial certificate, and the $200 million insurance claim already in her possession. But what shattered the world was her quivering voice when she wept. If Tracee's union is valid, then it means, "My husband had 2 brides, and my soul knows he could never do that." Admirers collapsed. A wife sinking in sorrow, a legacy ripped apart by accusations of deceit, and a little girl, allegedly Malcolm's child, trapped in a storm of lies, records, and headlines. Imagine being that daughter, stamped, doubted, dragged, into the glare of a battle she never wanted, every day wondering, am I his or am I just another piece in a game for wealth and attention? This is no longer about wealth. This is about honesty, about devotion, about a man who gave his spirit to dignity, but whose name is now being shredded in the most excruciating way. And tonight the downfall begins. The silence after that midnight clip was unbearable. Millions watched in shock, their screens reflecting not just a woman in sobs, but the downfall of a tale they thought they grasped. For weeks, Tracee Ellis Ross had painted herself as the mourning widow, the hidden bride, the one holding Malcolm Jamal. Warner's buried truth. Social platforms devoured it. Headlines announced her the woman who had been betrayed. But in that single recording, the trembling hands, the tear-streaked face, the proof displayed, the entire world realized maybe, just maybe, Tracee wasn't speaking the truth. The woman in that recording didn't seek notice. She wasn't polished. She wasn't practiced. She appeared shattered. This wasn't the act of a Hollywood star. This was raw, tangled human pain. And the internet for the first time witnessed a side of Malcolm's tale that Tracee never revealed. She placed the papers one by one in front of the camera, the union license with Malcolm's autograph, the hospital records with his identity, the death certificate engraved with certainty, and then the payment. $200 million in insurance compensation. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "This was not about recognition. This was not about influence. This was about my partner and guarding what's left of his name." And then came the words that shattered the internet in two. "If Tracee's wedding is true, then my spouse lived a hidden life. But I promise you, he was not that soul." The comment section erupted. Supporters wept. Some shouted in shock. Others turned on Tracee instantly, flooding her profile with doubts she couldn't resolve. Snapshots of the files spread viral within seconds. Twitter slogans surged worldwide. Justice defined the truth. Overshadow. Tracee downfall. But the turmoil didn't stop online. It poured into the courts. Her attorneys acted quickly, submitting urgent motions to confirm the files formally, and with them arrived the revelation, handwritten notes from Malcolm himself, authentic notes scrawled in his own ink, his writing undeniable, notes where he spoke not of 2 spouses but of one. Notes where he revealed his devotion, his reliance, and his hope that if anything ever struck him, she, the woman in that midnight clip, would carry his memory forward. The world wasn't prepared for that because suddenly, this wasn't just evidence. This was Malcolm echoing from beyond the grave. Imagine being Tracee in that instant. For weeks, she stood firm, commanding compassion, commanding headlines. And now, every piece of integrity she had carefully nurtured was collapsing in real time. Her assertions of union were no longer just sorrowful tragedy. They appeared like a calculated deception, a scheme, a narrative, and fans began to question, Was Tracee ever truly devoted, or was she merely performing the part of a mourning widow for the world to see? But the most devastating part was not the clash between two women. It was the little child at the heart of it all. Tracee's supposed daughter, Malcolm's claimed offspring, a teenager thrown into the spotlight with her identity torn on social media. One day she's being called Malcolm's successor. The next she's being branded a fraud. Strangers post jokes about her. Reporters wait outside her school. Every friend she had now murmurs behind her back. Is she really his? Or just a piece in Tracee's tale? Think about that. A young girl grieving the supposed absence of her father, now forced to defend her very existence to a world that refuses to trust her. A child regarded not as person, but as proof. And her quiet, it echoes louder than any speech. She hasn't posted online. She hasn't spoken to journalists, but peers leaked that she stopped attending school, that she sobs in the restroom when teachers mention her name, that she once whispered, "I wish I didn't exist, because maybe then they'd leave me alone." Those phrases alone shattered millions, because whether she is truly Malcolm's child or not, she is still a daughter. And daughters shouldn't bear wars fueled by adults, but wars are exactly what this has become. Tracee, once praised as a grieving spouse, now finds herself trapped. Paparazzi photos show her in anguish, covering her face, shouting at lenses. Her group rushes out press statements, insisting the records aren't real, alleging the clip was altered, insisting that she too has evidence. But the wave has shifted. The compassion has vanished. What's left is suspicion, confusion, and the downfall of an image carefully crafted in the spotlight. Meanwhile, Malcolm's true partner, the woman who stayed unseen, who never sought the limelight, has become the sorrowful heroine of this tale. She doesn't post portraits. She doesn't call the tabloids. She simply appears in court, holding Malcolm's notes, murmuring through sobs, "I am only fighting for my husband's honesty." And the fans, they're left fractured, torn between two accounts, two women, two realities. But deep inside, most sense the truth was etched long before this spectacle began. The truth breathes in the receipts. The truth breathes in Malcolm's voice. And the truth is steadily, painfully dismantling the illusion Tracee built. The question now isn't just who is Malcolm's partner. The question is, how far will Tracee push to preserve her collapsing empire? Because if one midnight clip could fracture her tale, imagine what follows when the courtroom lights blaze on, the records stack higher, and the judge demands the truth. And in the end, the most tragic part remains. Malcolm Jamal Warner, a symbol, a legend, a man cherished by millions, yet the courtroom was hushed, hauntingly hushed. You could sense the pressure in the air, the kind of silence that makes your spine crawl, because everyone knows what's about to unfold will shift everything. On one side sat Malcolm's real partner, the woman from the midnight recording, her face ashen, her hands quivering as she clutched the pile of notes and records that had already flipped the internet upside down. On the other side sat Tracee Ellis Ross, surrounded by elite attorneys, her eyes heavy from sleepless nights, her body shaking, but her dignity forcing her chin high. Flashes erupted from every angle. Writers scribbled frantically, and fans filled the gallery just to witness history unravel in living time. The judge's voice thundered, "Bring forth the proof." And just like that, the downfall truly began. Malcolm's wife's attorneys presented the certified marriage license first. It was irrefutable. His handwriting, her identity, the day, the seal. Gasps burst across the courtroom. Tracee's attorneys instantly objected, calling it a fraud, but the judge leaned closer, studying it carefully. His expression revealed nothing, but the audience sensed this wasn't some fragile sheet. This was genuine. Then came the notes. The ones Malcolm had penned with his own hand. His voice seemed to linger in the courtroom through the ink on those pages. One after another, notes were spoken aloud. "If anything ever happens to me, my wife is to control everything. She is my all. She knows my spirit. She carries my soul." People sobbed in the gallery. Journalists lowered their lenses just to dry their eyes. Even the court clerk had to stop, her voice shaking as she recited the words. Malcolm's devotion, his reliance, his loyalty, it all pointed to one woman. And it wasn't Tracee. Tracee's face shattered. The pride, the aura, the carefully molded persona, it all dissolved away in front of the world. She hid her face in her palms, whispering desperately to her attorneys. The cameras caught every instant, and within moments, screenshots of her collapse went viral. Hashtags like Tracee Shatters and Fallen Court were trending across the planet. But the most heart-wrenching moment wasn't the wedding license, wasn't the notes. It was the video proof. One of Malcolm's dearest companions had handed over a recording, an unseen clip of Malcolm in his final weeks, seated at his kitchen table, looking weary but smiling gently. He spoke straight into the camera. "If anything happens to me, I want people to remember the truth. I had one wife, one woman. She knows who she is, and I pray she never has to struggle for what's already hers." The courtroom froze. "People," cried. Tracee's attorneys tried to object, shouting about legitimacy, but the judge accepted it. The clip was raw, untouched, filled with Malcolm's undeniable voice. There was no disputing it anymore. Tracee Ellis Ross, the Hollywood titan, the woman fans cherished for decades, now sat uncovered, her credibility broken. But she didn't stay hushed. "No," she snapped, jumping to her feet, her voice trembling. She wailed through sobs. "He loved me too. You don't understand. He adored me." The courtroom exploded. Gasps flooded the room. Reporters scribbled furiously. Fans stared in shock as Tracee Ellis Ross, polished, elegant Tracee, lost every shred of composure she still held. She sobbed, she pleaded, she shook her head wildly. "You think I deceived you? You think I invented this? I was his all, too." The judge slammed the gavel, demanding order. But the ruin was already sealed. Cameras had captured her unraveling. Her voice, her collapse, her desperation, it was all exposed. And in the ruthless arena of public opinion, no amount of crying could erase the records piled against her. Outside the courthouse, bedlam erupted. Fans raised signs reading, "Justice for Malcolm," while others screamed for Tracee's punishment, branding her a fraud, a manipulator, a woman who dared to exploit a dead man's legacy. Protesters shouted, anchors wept on live TV and social. Platforms flooded with sorrowful edits of Malcolm's voice layered with the sobs of his wife. But beneath the viral chaos, a deeper wound remained. The child. That young girl Tracee had claimed was Malcolm's daughter now faced a reality even harsher than before. With every headline, with every viral clip of her mother's breakdown, her world shattered piece by piece. Reports surfaced that she hadn't stepped out of her room in days, that she stared at photos of Malcolm and murmured, "Was he truly my father, or just a tale my mom spun?" Imagine being that child, watching the world call your mother a liar, watching strangers laugh at your very existence, living each day with the chilling question, "Who am I?" And that question, her identity, became the next battleground. Because Tracee's lawyers, desperate to rescue her defense, revealed a bombshell, a DNA test. They vowed it would prove once and for all that Malcolm was indeed the father of Tracee's daughter. But Malcolm's wife's attorneys were prepared. They demanded the custody trail. They demanded the laboratories. They demanded legitimacy. Because in this fight, every scrap of proof was either salvation or destruction. And the fans, they were left suspended, their hearts torn apart, waiting for answers that felt unbearable to face. And in the center of it all, one question burned, louder than ever. If Malcolm were alive, would he survive this? Would his gentle nature, his quiet soul, his devotion to family, would it endure the spectacle his name had become? The truth is probably not, because even in death, Malcolm Jamal Warner is being ripped apart. His memory exploited, his name dragged, his family broken. And the cruelest part, none of this was his decision. This wasn't just a courtroom war. This was a public dismantling of a man's legacy. Tracee Ellis Ross, once a goddess of Hollywood, now stood as the villain of a sorrow she could no longer command. And Malcolm's true wife, the woman who wished for nothing but honesty, stood as the final strand holding his dignity intact. The world watched, mourned, and questioned how much more could crumble before the truth finally destroys everything. Because one thing is undeniable: this isn't the end. This is only the storm before the last reckoning. The world held its breath. For weeks, the court had warred over marriage papers, letters, and memories. But now everything narrowed to one thing: DNA. The judge ordered quiet as the envelope was carried inside. The sound of pages rustling echoed like thunder in the chamber. Tracee Ellis Ross leaned forward, her hands shaking, her lips quivering. Across from her, Malcolm's real wife shut her eyes, gripping a photo of her husband against her chest. And, in the center of this chaos, unseen but forever scarred, was a young girl waiting for the world to decide her identity. The file was unsealed. The judge's voice faltered as he began. According to the findings of the DNA testing, the probability of paternity between Malcolm Jamal Warner and the minor child is... The room leaned forward. Time seemed frozen. And then, because in that one merciless revelation, the young girl's world shattered. The man she had been told was her father, the hero she believed carried her blood, was not hers at all. Imagine being that child, your entire identity stolen from you on live television. Your existence twisted into a trending hashtag. Overnight, she went from Malcolm's daughter to the child of deception. Journalists stormed schools, digging into her past. Social platforms erupted with cruel remarks, memes, and viral footage. Strangers debated whether she should be pitied or condemned. And through it all, one crushing truth remained. She was just a child, innocent, blameless, destroyed. Meanwhile, Malcolm's real wife stood in court, tears pouring down her cheeks. She hadn't come for revenge, hadn't come to ruin anyone. She only longed for her husband's name cleared, his honor restored. But even in triumph, her soul ached. Because what was left to cherish when her husband's legacy had been dragged through the dirt, and a child's heart had been crushed beneath the weight of adult deceit? The fallout was instant. Hollywood abandoned Tracee Ellis Ross. Endorsements vanished. Projects were terminated. The same magazines that once crowned her now blasted headlines like Tracee's Web of Lies and Collapse of a Queen. Friends faded away. Fans who once idolized her flooded social platforms with betrayal. And in one haunting clip outside the courthouse, Tracee was seen wailing through sobs. "I loved him. I loved him," she screamed before being rushed away by guards. But the grief didn't end there. For Malcolm's family, the wounds cut deeper than ever. His name was no longer just about art, brilliance, and love. It was now eternally tied to scandal, legal wars, and viral collapses. His wife, standing outside the courthouse, whispered to reporters, "I just want my husband remembered for the man he truly was, not for the circus." Her voice shattered. Fans wept with her. The world wept with her. And the little girl, reports revealed she had been placed into therapy. At night, she cried herself into sleep, asking questions no child should ever carry. Why did my mom lie? Why does the world despise me? Was I never worthy? Teachers said she no longer spoke in class. Neighbors said she stopped laughing outside. Her youth had been stolen, not by Malcolm, but by a tale woven in deceit. The tragedy grew larger than one courtroom. It became a reflection of society. How far would people push for wealth, recognition, or headlines? How much ruin could falsehoods bring when wrapped around the name of a man who only longed for love and calm? And perhaps the most haunting part was the what if. What if Malcolm had been alive to protect himself? Would he have held his wife's hand, stared the world in the eye, and silenced the lies before they spread? Would he have lifted that child into his arms, refusing to let her innocence be crushed? Or would the weight of betrayal, disgrace, and humiliation have broken him? We'll never know. Because Malcolm Jamal Warner, the man whose smile once lit up screens, whose gifts inspired millions, was gone. And all that lingered was a battlefield over his ghost. In the weeks that followed, vigils were held. Admirers lit candles outside his old home. They sang, they prayed, they mourned. Murals appeared on walls across the country, his face painted in glowing colors, framed by words like truth, love, and honor. But beneath the beauty of those memorials lay an unmovable ache. Because no mural, no candle, no prayer could erase the catastrophe of what had unfolded. A wife left shattered, a child left wandering, a woman left disgraced, and a man's memory forever stained. The story wasn't just spectacle anymore. It was tragedy in its rawest shape. The kind that makes you question humanity itself. And in the end, only one truth lingered. When lies are built on the back of love, everyone loses. Malcolm's wife lost her peace, Tracee lost her throne, the little girl lost her innocence, and the world lost the chance to honor a man the way he deserved. This wasn't just theater. This wasn't just chatter. This was the ruin of a legacy. A love tale reduced to ashes. A tragedy that will haunt admirers forever. And as the world pushes forward, one question still hangs in the silence. If Malcolm could witness all of this from above, what would crush his heart more? The lies that dragged his name or the sobs of the people left behind? And now, as we arrive, at the end of this devastating journey, one truth is unshakable. Malcolm Jamal Warner's story is no longer just his own. It has become a reflection of love, betrayal, deceit, and the unbearable sorrow left behind. A wife torn apart, a child robbed of her innocence, and a legacy that deserved reverence but was drowned in scandal. Think about it. A man who gave the world joy, faith, and inspiration is now remembered not just for his brilliance, but for the chaos that followed his passing. And the cruelest part, he never got the chance to defend himself. His voice was silenced before the world needed it. So the question is, what do we do with this reality? Do we simply scroll past it? Do we let his memory fade beneath hashtags and chatter? Or do we together fight to remember the man he truly was? Because beyond the noise, beyond the trial, beyond the downfall, there was Malcolm, a human soul, a husband, a man who longed for nothing more than love, calm, and legacy. And if we don't hold on to that truth, then all of this anguish will have been for nothing. So here's what I ask of you. Don't let his story drown in lies. Share this. Speak about it. Keep his name alive for the right reasons. Let the world know that even in the shadow of betrayal, love is stronger, truth is stronger, legacy is stronger, because Malcolm Jamal Warner deserved better. His wife deserved better. That young girl deserved better. And the world deserves to remember the truth. Don't just watch. Be part of the fight to keep his memory alive.